You know that feeling, right? When you feel like you've been pushed to the side, totally overlooked, maybe even left behind. It's a tough place to be. Well, today we're going to look at that exact feeling, but through a totally different lens. We're calling it the Divine Reframe.
I mean, have you ever been there? A door you were so sure was going to open just slams shut. A relationship you were counting on just ends. An opportunity evaporates. And you're just left there thinking, what just happened? What did I do wrong? It feels like a demotion, like you've been taken out of the game. But here's the twist. Here's the core idea we're diving into today. What if getting sidelined wasn't about being reduced at all? What if it was actually a strategic move, a repositioning, designed to set you up for something way, way bigger? Let's get into what that really means.
All right, so the first big idea is this: learning to see that what feels like a painful setback is actually a powerful form of protection. Think of it like a divine shield you didn't even know was there.
Okay, this is where that reframe really starts to click. How it feels like punishment, what it really is, protection. It feels like total rejection, but in reality, it's preservation. And that frustrating delay, the one that feels like you're just stuck in neutral, that's just prep time. Man, this quote just nails it. We're always praying for open doors, right? But sometimes the most loving answer we can possibly get is a locked door. It's literally heaven standing between you and some unseen disaster, shielding you from a path that would have cost you everything. And that brings us to this idea of divine preservation. This isn't random. It's not an accident. It is an intentional, deliberate act. It's being guarded from the wrong partnerships, from pointless fights that would have just drained you, and from all those hidden traps you could have never seen coming on your own. And check this out. This just says it all. That thing you called a loss? Nope. That was a rescue mission. That thing that felt like a crushing failure? That was a divine intervention. It was a course correction. Because where you were just couldn't handle where you're going. Okay, so you've been protected, you've been shielded, great. But what happens next? Well, a lot of the time, what comes next is a long, quiet season of waiting. And man cannot feel unproductive, like a total waste of time. But as we're about to see, it has a massive purpose. This whole waiting period, it's all about spiritual refinement. It's this process where God is removing all the junk that holds you back. Old ways of thinking, bad habits, hidden weaknesses. Also, he can increase your capacity. He's making you stronger so you can carry what's coming next. And I really need you to hear this. None of that time was wasted. The stretching, the waiting, all that deafening silence, they weren't empty years. They were upgrades, period. So what do these upgrades actually look like? Well, for starters, you stop just assuming things and you start moving with real wisdom. Then that frantic, panicked sense of urgency you used to have, it gets replaced by this calm, steady endurance. And finally, all the confusion that used to cloud your mind, it gives way to sharp, clear discernment. And this is exactly why that refinement process is so critical. Because let's be honest, the person you were before this waiting period, you couldn't have handled what's coming. No way. The process was absolutely necessary to build the strength you'd need for this next season. And here's the beautiful thing. There's a promise attached to all of this. Right there in the book of Joel, it says, God will restore the years that felt like they were just eaten up by the struggle. And we're not just talking about getting time back. It's about being brought to a place of real satisfaction and honor. Now, something really interesting starts to happen once you've been through this whole process. You start to realize, wait a minute, I don't have to fight every single battle. You learn to step back and let truth itself do all the heavy lifting. All of a sudden, being silent doesn't feel like being weak anymore. It becomes this powerful act of trust. You get comfortable being still because you know that a higher power has got this and is more than capable of handling what you were never meant to carry anyway. This breaks it down perfectly, right? Your job versus God's job. Your lane. It's simply to maintain your integrity, practice some restraint, and keep your heart pure. But God's work? Oh, that's the big stuff. Uncovering all the deception, restoring order to the chaos, and, settling the accounts. You're freed up from that exhausting job of defending yourself. This is such a powerful spiritual law. When you refuse to feed the drama, when you stop reacting, arguing, and defending every little thing, you starve the deception. Lies just kind of collapse on themselves when they don't have your emotional energy to feed on. Truth always finds a way. And this is straight out of Scripture. That promise in Romans that says, vengeance is mine, that wasn't given to make you a doormat. Not at all. It was actually given as a strategy to keep your spirit pure, to keep you from being dragged down by bitterness and the need to get even. So, what's the endgame here? After all the protection, the refinement, the trust, what's the result? It's the emergence of a you that rises with a quiet, unshakable authority. So, who is this new you? What are you carrying now? First, an authority that is so real it doesn't have to announce itself. You carry a peace that kind of acts like a guardrail for your life. You've got a faith that's been tested by fire, so it doesn't get rattled. And finally, you have a wisdom that tells you exactly when to move and when to stay put. And this is so, so important. Your comeback story, your rise, it's not built on getting even. It tells a much better story than that. It's a story written with faithfulness when no one was watching, with restraints when you were provoked, and with quiet trust when absolutely nothing made any sense. And let's get one thing straight about what restoration actually is. God isn't interested in hitting the rewind button to take you back to what was. No. He restores by hitting fast forward on your purpose, advancing you into something far greater, with more capacity and deeper wisdom than before.
So as we wrap this up, here's the final reframe. This entire struggle, all the waiting, all this silence, it was never really about changing your circumstances. It was about revealing the person you were being forged into this whole time. So the only question left on the table is this: will you agree with who he says you've become?